Welcome back. Tonight we're going to go back to 1991's Nebula award-winning novel Tehanu. But I'm going to do things a little bit differently tonight. Normally when I do my Hugo and Nebula award-winning novels and I'll be ranking them on our sci-fi shed ladder, I normally go through and give a bit of a memory test. How well has this novel stood the test of time? And I'll go through that criteria when it comes to ranking it. But tonight I'm going to flip things around a little. And the main reason being is when I first read Tehanu, it would have been early 2000, 2001, 2002. I remember really thoroughly enjoying the novel, but I do recall walking away thinking I didn't quite grasp the backstory of the characters. When I first read it, I felt like there was something missing, and I thought I did myself a disjustice by not having read the 3 books that came prior to Tehanu. So this time around, when the opportunity arose, I found myself on eBay putting in a bid for a book haul, and one of the books was the EarthSea Quartet by Ursula Le Guin. And I thought, what a perfect opportunity to reread Tehanu as part of our Nebula and Hugo award-winning ladder that we've got going on here, but doing hopefully justice to myself and the book Tehanu by reading the predecessors, the 3 novels that came before this, just to see if it changes my perception of the novel. So what I'd like to do is give you a brief plot overview of the 3 books leading up to Tehanu and Tehanu as well. Tell you what I liked, what I didn't like. We won't do the memory test because I pretty much already explained that to you, which is the first time I read it, the key takeaway was, what a wonderful novel, but I'm missing a backstory. And as we go ranking it on our Hugo and Nebula award-winning ladder, I'll give you my fresh new look on this book, having reread the complete quartet this time. So the first novel is, what was it called? A Wizard of EarthSea. So it's really about this sorcerer called Ged, makes some mistakes in his early career. He's at very first part of the book, you learn that Ged has got some real promise, and there's talk of him being the Archmage of some point in time, and he's just got a lot of potential, but he makes a whole lot of mistakes. He unleashes this dark force, and it's a journey of discovery, of facing and confronting his demons, and a journey of discovery, right? The second novel is called The Tombs of Atuan, and it's a wonderful novel in its own right. It follows this young lady who's believed to be the reincarnation of this priestess of these nameless ones, these dark creatures. And what we find is that she lives a very lonely existence. And again, this is very much a coming of age novel. There's both psychological and moral growth in Tehanu, the main protagonist in this novel. And it's not until you get to about 50% through the novel that Ged comes back into the picture. So it's not a very big spoiler. I suspect that most people reading the EarthSea Quartet do expect to see Ged, but it takes a good 50% of the way through the novel for you to be reintroduced to Ged, who happens to come across these cave systems that Tehanu, the main protagonist, lives under as priestess of these nameless ones, because he's in search of this particular ring. And this particular ring is under the caves of Atuan. And it's believed that attaining that ring will bring a new king into being, which will restore peace on earth, and things go from there. What a wonderful novel Atuan is as well. She paints an absolutely beautiful picture of these cave systems. 90% of the novel takes place underground, but Ursula's writing just so wonderful that it just defies logic sometimes. But we're going to get back to the likes and dislikes as a summary for the 3 books. So quick plot summary. This Tehanu, the Eaten One, believed to be the reincarnation of this priestess of the Nameless One, these dark beings. She pretty much lives in exile, trapped and imprisoned really in many ways. Ged comes along looking for this particular artifact. The two meet up and all progresses from there. The third novel in the series is called The Farthest Shore. And what an interesting novel this one was. Basically, magic is starting to lose its power. Something's not quite right in EarthSea. Songs are being forgotten. Stories are being forgotten. Magic doesn't have the power it has and that it should have. And something's not quite right. And what we find is that there's this young prince who comes to Ged as the Archmage to say, hey, you know, this is what's going on in my neck of the woods. People are forgetting all these skills. Magicians are losing their power. Can you help us? And Ged sort of takes interest in this, thinking, yeah, something's not quite right. We need to be investigating. And Ged and this young prince go on this journey. And what they find is that there's some dark powers at play. And I won't talk to the plot too much because there'll be some spoilers. But this novel was very reminiscent for me to The Left Hand of Darkness, because you really have this prince, this young prince, going through his own moral growth and psychological growth with Ged, who sort of come to a different understanding. And the two go on this journey of discovery, a journey of acceptance, into some very dark places in ultimately what wraps the novel up. So I found that book very reminiscent of The Left Hand of Darkness, and a wonderful novel in itself. So I know I've been going a million miles an hour giving you a real quick recap of those three novels, because I think it plays a big part in Tehanu and getting the full appreciation of what Tehanu really was. So the fourth novel, Tehanu, starts towards the tail end of book 3. And what we find is that Ged, to overcome some of the challenges in book 3, had to do some pretty serious things, and he's no longer the person he used to be, without giving spoilers away. And we find that Tehanu is now has lived a life. So she has been married, she's now a widower, she's got 2 adult children, and Ged and Tena's story is not quite over yet. And what we find is that Tehanu doesn't find, but she gets acquainted through terrible circumstances with this young child. She's been terribly abused, been thrown into a fire, and been very badly disfigured. And Tena's sort of taking care of her. And Tehanu sees something special in this young girl. And there's talk of dragons. There's, you know, this, I was just going to say how much a wonderful book this is, right? But there's talk of dragons all through the 3 books. There's talk of dragons. Ged being the first dragon talker, or dragon speaker, I think they were called, from the very first novel. And there's a bit of backstory, and Tehanu sees the beauty in this young girl, her inner beauty and her power, potential power. She brings it to Ged, but Ged is having problems of his own, overcoming some of the challenges that he has. And again, it's just a wonderful story of growth and acceptance. And I think I'm going to leave it there for Tehanu. And I'm going to talk to some of the things that I liked, some of the things that I didn't like, and we'll go and rank it on our sci-fi shed later. So what a wonderful series the EarthSea Quartet was. Now, for those of you who are familiar with Ursula Le Guin, you'll know that she actually went on to write several, I think at least two more books in the EarthSea Quartet. She wrote the first 3 thinking that would be it, a trilogy, but she later added Tehanu, which won the Nebula Award 20 odd years later in 1990. And what a wonderful piece of writing is the EarthSea Quartet. I cannot believe how wonderful of a writer Ursula Le Guin is. Honestly, if I'm completely honest, I think she's got to be one of the best science fiction writers of her era, if not of all time. She really is a wonderful writer. Now, and what I really enjoyed about this series, for example, the EarthSea Quartet, the first novel, Wizard of EarthSea, it's written in a very archaic language style. It's very economic. We cover a whole amount of time, but it's written in this very poetic, archaic style. It's got very little dialogue, but somehow the story just flows. I absolutely really did, and it's almost unique in the EarthSea Quartet, I would go as far as to say. She deliberately went out to write in a different style, and I think it really paid off. I really did like that archaic, poetic way of writing, which really was a case of telling a story as opposed to showing a story, if that makes any kind of sense. But that's sort of the feel I got from reading the first novel. If I was to pick something on the first book that I didn't really like, I would say that there wasn't a whole lot of dialogue, but for me, I actually enjoyed, like I said, that archaic sort of feel that lends the book to. But I did find that some, like, you know, sometimes years will actually fly by within a sentence or two, right? So there was a little bit of that I thought, wow, you know, I would have liked to have spent a bit more time here. But it didn't really take away. That's really nitpicking, honestly. It was anything I could sort of think of, well, what, if anything, can I say was not perhaps the most enjoyable piece for the novel? And I'd have to say that was potentially it for me. And I can see it sort of distracting others. So what a wonderful novel The Tombs of Atuan was as well. Out of the two, I think I enjoyed The Tombs of Atuan more, her writing style more than I did even the first one, which is saying something, because I really did enjoy The Wizard of Earthsea. But also think it's a bit deeper, this novel as well, The Tombs of Atuan. So I really enjoyed the themes in The Tombs of Atuan. There's themes of, you know, faith and beliefs and challenging your curiosity and challenging your thinking that I really enjoyed in the novel. There's also the concepts of power and what is power? You know, is it mastery or authority, or is it trust and collaboration and friendship, right? And is that where power is really to be held? So there's some of the questions that come up in the novel, in The Tombs of Atuan, that I thought were really, really nicely done. As far as dislikes for Tombs of Atuan, really zero. I thoroughly enjoyed The Tombs of Atuan. I just thought her world building was wonderful, considering that we're in these underground catacombs, and it was just wonderfully, beautifully depicted. What a wonderful writer Ursula Le Guin is. When it comes to The Farthest Shore, what did I like? What didn't I like? Like I said in my sort of plot overview, this one was for me the one that most resembled The Left Hand of Darkness, if you've read that novel. Very similar themes, I believe, and that journey of discovery, of acceptance, I think it's Ursula Le Guin's real core strengths. I also really enjoyed the world building in The Farthest Shore. There's a section in the novel, they're traveling on this boat, Lukfar, the boat is called, which is just awesome, which I'm pretty sure it comes up in the first novel, if not the second. But anyway, they're on the boat, Lukfar, and they're going to the farthest shores, and they come into contact with these raft people, these people that live their whole life on rafts. And I really did enjoy that world in itself, and just the way she described what these people were and what they were doing. And they weren't necessarily affected by the demise of magic, but when these alien and outsiders came in, things started to change again, which I thought was really interesting and really well done as well. So similar to what we find in the whole EarthSea Quartet is that coming of age. And this is where we really see the growth of Aaron, the young prince. I really enjoyed that aspect of the novel again, how Aaron had to come through that cycle of growth, right? He had to have his doubts, to full acceptance, to ultimately becoming the person that he needed to be. Wonderful. As far as dislikes, again, zero. That's two in a row now that I can't pick a fault with the second two novels, right? So recommendations. Who would I recommend the EarthSea Quartet to? Well, anyone who loves fantasy. I think this is a classic fantasy quartet. I absolutely loved it. So I think if you're a fantasy person and you like your classic style fantasy, things like The Lord of the Rings, things like The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, I think you're not going to be disappointed in C.S. Lewis, I was going to say. You're not going to be disappointed in Ursula Le Guin. The obvious recommendations, if you read The Dispossessed, or you read The Left Hand of Darkness, Ursula's playing to their strengths again in this novel as well. You won't be disappointed in the EarthSea Quartet. Now, was it worthwhile reading the 4 books to be able to rank Tehanu, which was the one that actually won the Nebula Award in 1991? And I would say 150% yes. I don't think this novel, the Tehanu that is, would have ranked as highly if I didn't read the subsequent novels that led up to it. And the reason that is because she's brought all those characters together. So in those individual novels, we get to experience the growth of the individual actors in the novel. We'd see their journey, and in the 4th book, those journeys all come together. And now you have these mature people that have gone through their own battles to get to this point in time, overcoming again a major catastrophe in many ways, and the phoenix rising out of the ashes in young Tehanu, which catapults us into a new era. So yes, 100%, I think do yourself a justice. If you enjoy Tehanu and you think, you know what, I should reread it, or if you want to read all the classics on the Hugo and Nebula award-winning ladder, don't start with Tehanu. Start with The Wizard of EarthSea and read the 4 books together. It's like I said, it's not a huge novel, and I loved it. I read it within a week. But you will get, I think, the most enjoyment out of the series. Shall we rank it on our sci-fi shed ladder? I think it's going to do quite well. Let's have a look, eh? So back to the shed ladder and ranking the 1991 Nebula award-winning novel Tehanu by Ursula Le Guin. So just as a quick recap, we've got ascending to descending order, A side, B side, from left to right. And it's definitely going to be on the A side, I pretty much guarantee it. And we might as well start with Ursula's other Hugo and Nebula award-winning novel, The Left Hand of Darkness, that won both awards in 1970. And I've got to say that overall I enjoyed Tehanu more than I did The Left Hand of Darkness. And I've got to say that the characters were more memorable for me. Even though it's been 20 odd years, I remember as I started reading the first novel in the EarthSea Quartet, The Wizard of EarthSea, and Ged comes into the scene, I automatically remembered Ged. I thought, oh yeah, I remember Ged from Tehanu. And then the development of those characters, it's a bit unfair, I guess, because I'm very much influenced by the fact that I've read the 4 books back to back, and there are now partitions in my brain at the moment. The EarthSea Quartet is all a big 700-page novel at the moment. So take it for what it is. Some of the character development has gone through 700 odd pages of transcript here. So, but I would have to say that, yeah, I enjoyed overall Tehanu as a standalone novel more than I did The Left Hand of Darkness. But like I said, with some caveats around the fact that it's just a big washing machine of EarthSea at the moment in there. And I've got to say, it's the same when it comes to Forever War, the same arguments. I felt Tehanu's characters were better developed, and I think Ursula's writing is definitely better than Joe Alderman's. 100% I enjoyed her writing in the Tehanu and the EarthSea Quartet as a whole more than I did Forever War. So I'm going to rank it above Forever War. And the Case of Conscience is interesting because it dealt in some ways with similar themes around that, you know, faith and belief and curiosity and challenging your concepts and preconceived notions, right? So I thought similar themes, but I'm going to give it to James Blish. I think James' Case of Conscience I enjoyed just a smidgen more than I did Tehanu, Ursula Le Guin's, which is really saying something, right? Because you know, a fantasy novel, I don't read a whole lot of fantasy, but Tehanu, I've got to say, is right up there. It's one of the all-time great novels, which we've only got one left now, The Dispossessed from Ursula Le Guin, that also won I think a Nebula and maybe even a Hugo. I'd have to double check. So yeah, we're getting close to closing out Ursula Le Guin's ladder run. So it'll be interesting to see where The Dispossessed will land in all of this. But hey, what a wonderful series the EarthSea Quartet was. Highly recommended. I hope you do take on my recommendations and read the complete lot. I think you'll get the most enjoyment. Hey, I've been Peter. This has been the Sci-Fi Shed. It's getting hot in here. Summer's coming. We might have to switch to mornings. See you next time.